Once again, welcome to the Candidates Forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Northwest Wayne County. The second part of our forum is for the 20th District State House of Representatives. There are two candidates running for this seat. They are Republican Jeff Noble and the Democrat Matt Kolesar. The 20th District covers the cities of Plymouth, Northville, and the townships of Plymouth and Northville, and the eastern part of Canton Township. We were notified by Mr. Noble's campaign office that he would not be attending the forum tonight. Mr. Kolesar will join us and answer the questions that we have gathered from the audience, either here present tonight or online. The candidates were asked to prepare a 1-minute opening statement, and then they will have 1 minute to respond to the questions and 2-minute closing statement. Mr. Kolesar will introduce himself, and then he will give his opening statement. And followed after he gives his statement, our league president, Angela Ryan, will read a statement from Mr. Jeff Noble, and that will only be a minute in length as well. So, Mr. Kolesar, your opening statement, please.
First of all, I would very much like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. It's so great to be able to be here tonight and speak with all of you, and I'm really looking forward to tonight as well. Apologies. I've been a teacher for the last 12 years. It's been my passion to be in my classroom with my students, seeing them learn, seeing them grow, and being there for them. Over the last 8 years, I've watched destructive policy over destructive policy hurt our schools more and more. Finally, coming into 2018, I decided that it was time to run because who better to represent educators than a teacher himself. Across the country, we're seeing a record-breaking number of teachers running for office, and I am privileged and proud to fall into that statistic. I'm here today to answer questions, to also, not just from League of Women Voters, but from you as well, to be able to have you, to give you the opportunity to learn more about me, as well as to hopefully get the chance to meet you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Ryan, will you please read the statement from Representative Noble?
All right, these are Mr. Noble's words. First and foremost, I want to thank you for inviting me to tonight's forum, and I am sorry I'm unable to attend due to a prior commitment. I've been a member of our community for the last 19 years, serving as a pastor. I have always had a passion for serving others, whether it be in the church helping someone through a tough time, or as your state representative helping someone with an issue they have with their state government. Over the last year and a half while serving as your state representative, I have been focused on making sure your voices are being heard. I have supported more funding for education with an additional $8.5 million being provided to our Northville and Plymouth-Canton school districts, providing tax relief, and focused on fixing our roads and stopping sexual assault. While some progress has been made, there is still much more that needs to be done. If granted the opportunity to continue serving you as your state representative, I will continue to focus on providing tax relief, reducing the cost of auto insurance, and ensuring all students have the opportunity to receive a quality education. Thank you for inviting me to this forum and allowing me to submit this statement, and I apologize for being unable to attend. I hope the rest of the evening goes well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Okay, our first question this evening, and you have to talk right into the microphone so everyone can hear you. That's okay. What experiences do you have that would benefit you as a state representative in a freshman seat?
My experience as a teacher has taught me a lot of things. One, it's taught me empathy. Beyond empathy, it has also taught me that you need to be there for every single person. You don't just pick certain students that you are going to teach and you are going to be there for. You teach all of them, regardless of background, ideology, or belief system. You make sure that you are there for everybody. As a freshman state legislature, my extensive experience in education, as well as organized labor, gives me an ability to have been working in the public sector for the last 12 years, has given me the ability to see the struggles that not only schools have had, but also people across a variety of different occupations have had as well. With that experience, I believe that in the general background of wanting to help people, that background gives me an empathetic nature that will always make sure my constituents come first.
Thank you. Our second question. Michigan has one of the lowest ratings for governmental transparency. Would you support the application of the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA as it's sometimes referred to the legislature and governor's office?
Absolutely. And I'm going to start with the fact that I want to tell everyone a story here that after I announced my campaign, the Michigan Republican Party FOIA'd my service records as a teacher. I'm glad they found out that I've been highly effective. I'm also glad they found out that I've never had discipline lodged against me, and I'm glad they found out that I don't have an expense account. We don't have money for that. At the same token, I cannot return that favor because our state government is not able to be FOIA'd. Why would we not want those who are making the most important decisions on the behalf of our state to have their records transparent? I fully support government transparency in Lansing.
Current regulations prohibit oil companies from extracting oil and gas from under the Great Lakes. Do you support repealing these regulations?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Certainly. Current regulations prohibit oil companies from extracting oil and gas from under the Great Lakes. Do you support repealing these regulations?
I do not support repealing these regulations. Our Great Lakes are the greatest symbol of our state. We are the Great Lakes state. When you look at situations where you are putting our lakes in potential harm's way, as we know right now they are in, you're talking about a situation that can destroy the single most distinguishable landmark in our state. We need to protect our Great Lakes, not put them at further risk for the profits of private corporations. People over profits, and that's something I stand by, especially when it comes to our Great Lakes.
Thank you. The next question, what will you do, if elected, to reach across the aisle to address issues with your counterparts from the other party?
Overall, when I look at this issue, the first thing that pops out to me is our roads. We all know our roads are dangerous. At the end of the day, you cannot have a partisan solution. It's about common sense solutions. Reaching across the aisle means that you look for a common sense solution to a complex problem that's been allowed to build and build and build over the last couple decades. If elected, I fully plan to reach across the aisle so we can come up with a bipartisan solution, not a partisan solution, to fixing our roads. As a teacher, it's the same thing when I talk to other teachers. We work together regardless of how we feel about each other personally, regardless about how our views are personally, because we are there to help students. It's the same thing. You're there to help your constituents, not just advance an ideological agenda.
Thank you. The next question. What will you do to repeal or revamp Public Act 51, or Act 51 monies as they're called for roads, which unfairly distributes the road funding to counties throughout the state?
Public Act 51 really needs to be overhauled because, first of all, the biggest and most notable problem with Public Act 51 is it doesn't service townships. In District 20, we have 3 townships that don't get serviced because of Public Act 51. We need to remember that there are a lot of townships in the state of Michigan that need access to this funding, or our infrastructure is going to continue to get worse and worse. We also need to look at other things here in addition to Public Act 51, such as holding our overweight trucks accountable for what they're doing on the roads. We need to also look at requiring warranties from road contractors. These are things that we don't have right now. In addition to that, you also need to look at fully funding our infrastructure program to a point where you're not just focused on port projects like my opponent, but you're actually focusing on consistently trying to fix our roads.
Thank you. Next question. Please discuss what policy you would support that addresses gun violence in schools, and in particular, what is your stand on arming teachers or staff in schools?
I want to be 100% clear on this. I am 100% undoubtedly against arming our teachers. As a teacher myself, I want to put you through a scenario that I've been through. I remember I was teaching my second-hour world history class just 5 years ago. A PA announce comes on, active shooter in the building. We went into lockdown for the next 2 hours, lights off, no windows in my classroom. We had a light in the corner that the kids huddled around. The kids were afraid, obviously so. When the police officer came barreling through the door and we walked through a courtyard with helicopters flying above, SWAT team outside, I was happy that it was only a drill. That situation told me that we need to look at helping our students. We need to make sure we're fully investing in school social workers, school psychologists, and deputy liaison police officers. If somebody has a gun, it's going to be a trained police officer, not a teacher, that would have to look a student of theirs in the eyes before shooting them. I think it's disgusting.
Thank you. Next question. The right of a woman to make decisions regarding her own reproductive health continues to be controversial. What is your stand on this issue?
My stand is it's her body, her choice. As a man, it is not my job to tell her how she should conduct her body. I think women's reproductive rights need to be up between a woman and her physician, and the government should be staying away from it and respect Roe v. Wade.
Thank you. The next question. Would you support legislation for equal pay for women? Why or why not?
Yes, I would. First of all, as a teacher, we have equal pay for equal work, as we are fully government transparent. And if you're doing the equal work, you should simply get the same payment in return. I don't see why this is an issue as far as why we have a problem with this issue, why anyone wouldn't suggest that, or why anybody would suggest that a woman should make less than a man. There's no reason for it at all. I 100% would support legislation to guarantee equal pay for equal work.
Thank you. Do you support shutting down the Enbridge Line 5 pipeline through the Mackinac Straits, and why or why not?
Yes, I do. As said before, our Great Lakes are our symbol of our state. I have spent my entire life in Michigan. I was born and raised in Walled Lake. I moved to Plymouth Township 8 years ago. I have a lot of pride in this state. I remember going up north, going to Tequamanon Falls, Whitefish Point, going up to Mackinac City. I can't imagine the disaster of an oil pipeline that's 14 years overdue for maintenance, bursting, and all of a sudden we see dark pools of oil right underneath our Mackinac Bridge. It's frightening to me. I also was frightened when I heard that an anchor was hitting it just a couple months back. That to me spells ticking time bomb. And you don't just let a time bomb keep ticking, you disarm it.
Thank you. What would you do to make charter and cyber schools more accountable?
One, I would remove the for-profit motive from charter schools. When we have a for-profit motive in charter schools, we are basically taking money out of our classrooms and we are putting it in the hands of for-profit corporations who have no accountability or transparency to the people. Their boards are not elected by the people. They do not have to be as transparent. I would fully support them having to be more transparent through FOIA laws and such. I also, in addition to that, I want to point out that 25% of the nation's for-profit charter schools are located right here in Michigan. While that's taken hold, we have seen our educational ranking go down and down and down. This DeVos style agenda is not working for our kids, and I would fully support increased transparency in charter schools and the removal of the for-profit motive.
Thank you. Other states have programs to train and assist those coming out of prisons into jobs and places to live. This has reduced crime recidivism. Would you support such a program? If so, why or why not?
Absolutely, I would support such a program. In my mind, we have a duty as human beings to rehabilitate people. You do something that can make them perform a better role in society as well as find peace in their own lives. After they have served their sentence in any prison or any jail facility, they should be able to come out and be productive members of society. We need to foster that as a society, because if we don't, we know what the end result is going to be. They're going to end up back in jail, and that's not what we want. We want a rehabilitative system, and I fully stand in support of these type of programs that can make them productive members of our society.
How would you get help for cities and towns that are having financial difficulties, on the verge of possibly financial emergency managers?
Well, one, I think it's fair to say that Proposal A has not worked. The temporary solution has actually hurt a lot of our localities more than it has helped them now as time has gone on. I think we need to overhaul that, because that source of funding has been something that we have seen dwindle for our localities. And in addition to that, I do not believe in emergency manager laws. We elect people. That's democracy. That's what we do. We have elected officials. So I think it's the state's responsibility to be a resource and not a punitive measure.
Thank you. How can the legislature best support university-level education and research?
I would say that the number one way that we need to make sure we're still supporting our universities is to also make sure that we provide access for students to attend them. And what I mean by that is making sure that students have opportunities for scholarships, for grants, etc. One of the problems we're seeing right now is a lot of students either A, can't afford college, or B, they didn't get the opportunity in high school to go to a vocational or a technical education program that would have helped them, that maybe college wasn't for them. So instead they went on to college. I think if you make it so there's other opportunities for students, you make sure that students that are going to college are there because that is where they truly want to be. It's about opportunity for our students that then in part provides better, that then basically provides a better environment for universities.
Thank you. Some people in Lansing have proposed eliminating the income tax and replacing it with a 15% consumption tax to eliminate loopholes and make sure people pay their fair share. Do you support that issue?
I do not support eliminating an income tax. Unfortunately, the consumption tax would not make up for the shortfall we would see in a budget. And unfortunately, as we've seen with our roads and our schools, which are underfunded, by then creating a greater funding gap is only going to compound the problem there. If you don't have good schools and you don't have good roads, you're not going to have a lot of people living in Michigan, and that's going to create a big problem when it comes to a consumption tax.
Thank you. Recently, a study was done that said we should be funding schools at $8,900 per student. How would you fund schools to bring up their per pupil funding to that level?
There's a lot of different ways. One thing is there are different ballot measures out there that could generate revenue for the state. We could direct those toward education. We also have to look at, again, ending the for-profit mode of education that has really sucked a lot of money out of our public schools and sent it, again, to for-profit private corporations that have no existence in this community. We're sending our money right out of our own communities. If we eliminate that for-profit motive, that is then in turn going to bring more money back into the schools that is otherwise going into the pockets of people that have no bearing on education. So I think you have a couple of things there that right away you're bringing more money right back into our schools.
Thank you. What are your thoughts and opinions on taxing retirement accounts?
I'm 100% against this, and this, to me, number one, we need to make sure we're repealing the senior pension tax. Unfortunately, my opponent voted against that measure in committee. I believe that by repealing the senior pension tax, let's also keep in mind, the senior pension tax, most people that have this tax, they worked their entire careers, and they had no chance to plan for that. It was untaxed for years, and then all of a sudden, they could just be a couple of years for retirement or already be retired, living on a very fixed income, and all of a sudden they're paying a tax that they had no way of planning for. I'm fully for repealing that because that's not fair to our seniors.
Do you think taxpayer dollars should be used to help MSU pay the $500 million settlement to Larry Nassar's victims?
No.
And these will be the last two questions unless other questions are requested by members in the audience.
If I'm being too efficient,
What is your position on House Bill 4926, which would legalize and regulate online poker and sports betting?
as long as it is regulated, I'm okay with it. I also want to make sure that that revenue is going toward public goods. It needs to go for our roads, for our schools, and things that go to enhance our state. It should not be going to private interests.
Thank you. And who are the biggest contributors to your campaign, and do you believe in campaign financing?
Well, let me start with the biggest.
I'm sorry, campaign financing reform.
I believe in making sure that it is fully transparent. At the end of the day, we want to get a lot of, there's a lot of money in politics, and we all know this, and we need to look at where that money's coming from. I am pleased to say that roughly 70% of my funding has come from individual contributors. I've had several hundred individual contributors at this point, which far exceeds my opponent. While I do have some PAC money, right off the top of my head, for example, from the Carpenters Union, which I'm fully transparent about in our transparency report. You can see where all my money has come from. Most of my money my campaign's money has come from individual contributors, and I wear that like a badge of honor.
Thank you. All right, that was the last question, and we will now go to the closing part of our forum here. Thank you, Mr. Colzar, for appearing tonight to help inform the voters that will be going to the polls. We thank the City of Plymouth for allowing us to use their facility for the forum tonight. Our forum has been videotaped and can be viewed on our website, lwvnorthwestwayne.org, and that should be available after the 15th of September. I'd also like to thank the candidate and your counterpart, who is not here, for their willingness to serve the public, and to the audience for such thoughtful questions. All of the candidates... Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, I didn't do your closing. You've had the floor. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Colzar. Could you give us your closing statement? 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
A lot of times, the question I'm asked the most, or really the question I'm asked the most is, Matt, why did you run? And you know, what I would like to tell you is that I'm an AP government teacher. I do geek out about this stuff quite a bit. But that being said, I always wondered, if I were to run, when would the time be right? Would I know when the time was right? How will I know? And then it all came together when I had thought about it, and my opponent said, I think gun-free zones are nuts and we need to arm our teachers. As a teacher, I stand against this so passionately, and I stand for the teachers I teach with, the students I work with every single day, that I'm here because I know our kids and our teachers need to be represented. And I know that with a strong public school system, we can make this entire state what we know it is so capable of. I love it here. I'm here to make Michigan a better place, and I humbly and sincerely ask for your vote.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Colzar, for being here this evening. And again, we'd like to thank the City of Plymouth for allowing us to use the council chambers this evening for our forum. As I said, it has been videotaped, and it can be viewed at lwvnorthwestwayne.org, and that will be available around September 15th. We also thank the candidates for their willingness to serve the public and to the audience. All of the candidates were also invited to participate in the League of Women Voters Voting Guide, a publication that you can access online by viewing vote411.org at the end of September. Printed copies will be available in your public libraries in early October. We urge voters to review the responses of the candidates on the voter guide before voting absentee or at the polls on Election Day. This is especially important this year, since this is the first time in over 100 years that Michigan voters will not be able to vote using the straight party ticket option. Remember to study all the candidates and vote the entire ballot, including the nonpartisan judicial races and the ballot proposals. Sometimes you have to flip over the voting ballot to see those issues. Election Day is Tuesday, November the 6th. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And if you vote in person, you will be asked for a picture ID. If you don't have one, if you don't have it with you, you can still vote by signing an affidavit of identity. We urge you all to be participants in our democracy by making educated choices in the November election. This concludes our forum this evening, and thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much for
We have